may be the first thing that comes to mind when people get asked about information security threats. But with modern computing and internet technologies and innovations, threats are even becoming more and more diverse and more dangerous than ever. But what exactly is a threat? The traditional definition of a threat is something that may potentially injure, harm, or damage someone or something. But in the context of information security, a threat can be anything that can take advantage of a vulnerability to breach security and negatively alter, erase, harm an object or objects of interest. And since we are basically giving out and using even more information as new technologies arise in almost every aspect of our lives at work and even in our personal lives, this is a very serious thing to worry about. People often think that threats are just external attackers, but more often than not, the biggest threats can actually be forces of nature or human error or failure. According to Evan Wheeler, the author of Security Risk Management, it is generally in the nature of a security professional to assume that threats will be malicious attackers, but we also need to account for user errors and accidents that can lead to security breaches. Just how serious are issues of threats in information security? As of last year, data breaches exposed records that would be roughly equivalent to 4.1 billion, that is more than half of the world's population. According to another research from the University of Maryland in 2018, they say that an attack roughly occurs 2,244 times a day, which is equivalent to an attack every 39 seconds. With more and more aspects of technology becoming even more complex, such as AI, cloud-based technologies, IoT or Internet of Things, and many other digital innovations becoming ubiquitous in our daily lives, we are exposing ourselves even more to threats. Interestingly, according to a report from the World Economic Forum for this year of 2020, threats on information security, particularly cyber attacks and data fraud, rank higher than COVID-19 related risks for companies worldwide. In fact, threats on cyber attacks on technology infrastructures is one of the biggest risks that world economies are facing this year, aside from environmental, societal, geopolitical, and health risks. Now, before you panic, let's first see what we're up against. How can threats exactly cause damage? The threat process goes like this. A threat agent gives rise to a threat that can exploit vulnerability, which can lead to a security risk that can further damage your assets and cause an exposure. This can be countermeasured by a safeguard that directly affects the threat agent. Now let's talk about common attacks. Threats are exploited with a variety of attacks, some technical, others not so much. One big mistake that organizations do is just focusing on the technical or external risks, while neglecting internal risks and policies and procedures or employee training and awareness, the things within that really matter.
Malware, or malicious software, is a catch-all term for any sort of software designed with malicious intent. It is specifically designed to gain access to or damage devices and systems, usually without the knowledge of the owner. They work by taking advantage of technical flaws in our systems called vulnerabilities. Malware comes in many forms. Viruses are the only type of malware which infects or modifies other legitimate files. A computer virus is only executed when the infected file is opened or executed. It needs human action for it to transfer and to take effect. On the other hand, worms spread through a network without the need for human intervention. It is able to replicate itself on different devices. Most of the famous malware during the 90s and early 2000s were actually worms which infected computers globally. A Trojan masquerades itself as a legitimate program, but contain malicious instructions. Some even pose as fake antivirus programs. They neither infect other files nor do they self-replicate. Once malware is able to infiltrate a device, it may cause disruption to your files and even take down your system. The I Love You virus, which originated from the Philippines, is a classic example of malware. In the year 2000, this worm spread very quickly and attacked around 10% of computers globally. The I Love You virus came in the form of an email message with the subject line, I love you, in an attachment that looks like a text file of a love confession, but is actually a script which would overwrite random files, steal passwords, and automatically send copies of itself to all contacts in the victim's Microsoft Outlook address book. It was so effective that even the Pentagon, CIA, and many large corporations completely shut down their email systems in order to protect themselves from the virus. Originally, malware was created for experiments and pranks, but eventually it was used for vandalism and destruction of targeted machines. The first wake-up call of how malware could actually cause destruction in the real world is the Stuxnet attack. It targeted the equipment used to produce enriched uranium that powers nuclear weapons and reactors. It hijacks the computers connected to the controllers, which caused centrifuges to spin too quickly and for an extended period of time, effectively damaging and destroying the delicate equipment. While all of this is happening, it sends a message to the monitoring system that everything is working fine. Today, most malware is created for profit. Ransomware prevents you from accessing your computer files, systems, or networks and demands you to pay a ransom for the return. The attacker usually encrypts all the victim's data and offers to send the decryption key only when the victims pay the ransom within 24 to 48 hours. Attacks are usually targeted, but there are those which can spread through a worm, such as the WannaCry ransomware. Hackers can also make profit through stealing sensitive information through spyware or forced advertising through adware. With spyware, attackers log the keystrokes of victims and gain access to passwords or intellectual property. Adware programs will tend to serve you pop-up ads, change your browser's homepage, or just bombard your device with advertisements. Malware has evolved through the years and will continue to do so as we transition to the age of the Internet of Things.
Social engineering is the art of manipulating people into performing actions or divulging confidential information. It's a broad range of malicious activities accomplished through human interactions. The keywords here are manipulate and human interactions. Social engineering takes advantage of human error rather than system vulnerabilities. Some of the common social engineering techniques include phishing, which attempts to acquire information through deception; smishing and vishing, which uses SMS and voice calls to manipulate victims; pretexting, which involves an impersonation of a trusted source and fabrication of a scenario to convince the victim to perform an action; baiting, which uses curiosity to move the user to click links with malware; and waterholing, which takes advantage of trusted websites and mobile apps. To give us an example, let's look at this video.
What do you think of when I say the word hacker? Some creepy dude in a basement? Well, that's a misconception. What if I told you there's a class of hackers who don't just have social skills, they have more social intelligence than anyone you'll ever meet? David Kennedy is one of them. He's what's known as a social engineer, or a people hacker. His craft is to dupe you into doing things and sharing information you probably shouldn't.
Can I just get your credit card number?
Some use it for illegal activity. In David's case, companies pay him to find out if employees are leaving the company vulnerable. He and his team show us how it's done. Step 1. Spoof his number so it looks like he's calling from inside the company, and then call tech support.
Hello, you there? Hello?
Hi, this is Ken. How may I help you?
I was wondering if you can take a look at a website I'm trying to get to. It's for a big customer thing I'm working on for Monday, and I can't seem to get to the website from my computer.
Sure. What's the website? I'll see if I can get to it.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate the help. I mean, it could be a stupid thing. I'm really stuck with computers, but so it's www.survey. That's survey -pro.com.
Yeah, I got a prompt to open. I just clicked open, and I'm at the site now.
Here's what the IT guy doesn't realize. By clicking that link, he's just given David full access to his computer.
Whoa, okay, that's weird. I just hit it and it works. It seems like it's working fine now. Awesome. I don't know what you did, man, but I really appreciate the help.
Hey, no problem. That was easy.
That was it?
We're on his computer right now.
You were able to take over this guy's computer within, I would say, like under 2 minutes.
Under 2 minutes, yeah. Under 2 minutes, took over his entire computer, and think of it as not just his computer, but it's pretty much a downfall of the entire company.
In this case, the company was paying David to hack them and see if their employees would fall for it. They did.
In this scenario, the threat agent is the person asking nicely for help, stressing on the urgency of the situation, and the vulnerability is the helpful agent that accepted the call. This eventually led to a security risk where the caller gained access to the company computer. How do you now counter the situation? There needs to be safeguards in place that affects the threat agent, such as conducting awareness testing and training for employees, and using anti-phishing tools.
What is industrial espionage? Industrial espionage is the illegal and unethical theft of business trade secrets for use by a competitor to achieve competitive advantage. It is often done by an insider or an employee who gains employment for the express purpose of spying and stealing information for a competitor. Industrial espionage describes activities such as theft of trade secrets, which is best illustrated via an animated series SpongeBob, where the character of Plankton tries to steal the Krusty Krab's famous Krabby Patty. Can also come in a form of bribery or blackmail, where an individual or group of individuals could use leverage or offer money in exchange of access to trade secrets. Industrial espionage can also come in a form of technological surveillance or spying on commercial organizations or governments. In January 2010 blog post, Google disclosed that it detected the previous month a highly sophisticated cyber attack originating from China that resulted in the theft of its intellectual property. The company said evidence suggested that the primary goal of the attackers was to access the Gmail accounts of Chinese human rights activists. In 1971, Pentagon Papers, a classified U.S. military report which details the political and military involvement of the U.S. during the Vietnam War, was leaked by Daniel Ellsberg, who had worked on the study.
The next type of cyber attack is the man-in-the-middle. A man-in-the-middle attack, or MITM, is a cyber attack wherein the attacker eavesdrops and possibly alters communication between two parties who believe they are communicating directly. The attack is generally unnoticeable and may come in different forms. The more traditional form is through a network, particularly through public Wi-Fis. An attacker may set up a new network with a very legitimate sounding name, similar to nearby businesses such as coffee shops. Once a user connects to an attacker's Wi-Fi, the attacker will be able to monitor the user's online activities and intercept login credentials and payment card information. An attacker may also look for existing vulnerable routers with poor security and generic passwords. Once they gain access to these routers, they can deploy tools to intercept and read the victim's transmitted data. Man-in-the-middle can also be performed remotely by spoofing a legitimate establishment such as a bank. The fake page may even connect to a legitimate secure website, but since the fake page may be unsecured or not encrypted, the attacker may steal the information very easily.
We will now discuss spamming, hoaxes, and phishing. Spamming is the abuse of electronic messaging systems to indiscriminately send unsolicited bulk messages, many of which contain hoaxes or other undesirable contents, such as links to phishing sites. Spamming ranges from harmless marketing to serious threats from cybercriminals attempting to steal data and spread malware. There are various types of spamming, and we will discuss a few in the next slides. The advance fee scam involves an unknown sender offering a vast reward in exchange for a cash advance, which is to be used to process a larger sum. When the money is transferred, it disappears together with the sender. Phishing emails simulate real emails and trick the victim to giving information such as logins and credit card info. We will discuss more about phishing later, so let's proceed with the next example. The next is malspam, which is malware spread via spam. It tricks the user to take action like clicking on a download link or opening an attachment that infects the computer with malware. For this example, the email takes advantage of people's fear of the coronavirus to encourage the recipient to open the attached Word document, which may infect the computer with malware. There are also spams on mobile and Android, which range from text messages to robocall spams. Robocall spams are pre-recorded scam messages that aim to get information or money. The calls supposedly come from banks, creditors, or other organizations. Let's hear an example of a popular robocall scam which supposedly came from Apple.
This is Molly from Apple Support. We have found some suspicious activities in your iCloud account, that your iCloud account has been breached. Before using any Apple device, please contact Apple Support Advisor. Press 1 to connect with Apple Support Advisor. Press 2 to listen to this message again. Or if you wish to contact us later, please call us on our toll-free number .518-730-1561. Thank you.
Okay, so let's now move on to the next topic, hoaxes. A hoax is information that is not true but is made as if it is true. It can be distributed via email, social media, and other media. There are different types of hoax. The popular hoax is a chain letter, which is an email that urges a recipient to forward the email to others. Another is a scam, which is a fraudulent business scheme. It can also be a virus hoax or an email warning about a non-existent virus that urges users to forward it. Another is a scare, which is a warning of a greatly exaggerated threat. It can also be a false alarm where a harmless file is tagged as infected, or it can just be a misunderstanding where the problem is incorrectly attributed to a virus. A lot of hoax are sent via email and social media. There is Bill Gates giving out a fortune if you forward the email, famous personalities endorsing investment opportunities, and even presidents endorsing local candidates. The goal of the sender or source can be anything, from stealing your personal information, for financial rewards, or to spread misinformation. It's always best to fact-check before believing and acting on all this info. Okay, so far we've discussed spamming and hoaxes. Let's now proceed to discuss phishing. Phishing is the criminally fraudulent process of attempting to acquire sensitive information such as usernames, passwords, and credit card details by masquerading as a trustworthy entity in an electronic communication. It is a modified term to phishing. In this case, the criminal is the one doing the phishing, and they are trying to reel you in or get a response from the emails. Phishing schemes use different tactics to make the user click and take action to the phishing email, such as appeal to the user's greed in the case of lottery announcements, or curiosity, such as announcements of new products or free services, or entice fear, such as notices of invalid bank transactions. If you recall, a few years ago, a Facebook post became popular for announcing that PAL will be giving away free tickets for their anniversary. The post was denied by PAL, prompting the airline carrier to issue a formal announcement invalidating the said promotional activity. Let's look at this particular email. Assuming you received this email where you are advised of a suspected fraudulent use of your credit card, your initial reaction would be shock, and then you check the email contents. In the email, you will see that you have been charged a large amount for the purchase of an item which in reality you did not really purchase. You are advised to update your credentials, and so you click the revise button, and you are asked for personal data such as email address, date of birth, social security number, and some financial data such as your credit card number and online username and password. Don't click that button. This is actually a phishing email, and providing the information will compromise your bank account. When you look closely at the email address, the email came from a random sender and not a valid email address of the bank. Just report the email to the bank and delete the email from your inbox. A more advanced form of phishing is spear phishing. It targets specific groups, departments, or individuals in an organization with the aim of infiltrating the network for a payback. In this example, a fake email is sent to the sysadmin claiming that itservices.com is offering a new service for free for a limited time. Clicking the link, however, redirects the user to a fake site which is identical to the original. At the same time, a command and control agent is installed in the sysadmin machine, which can be used as a backdoor to the enterprise network. Once the attacker is in the network, they can execute data theft, shut down and reboot servers, and execute denial of service attacks. Another type of phishing is social media phishing. This is where attackers create fake identities and persona to infiltrate organizations. The fake persona also has a social media account such as Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook to be more authentic. Take for example the case of Mia Ash, a fake persona created to spy and establish relationships with target organizations. Mia Ash operates by establishing a relationship with an employee of the target organization and establishing rapport through social media. Once the relationship is established, Mia Ash will ask the employee to run or open an application, such as Excel, using the corporate email account, which contains macros that can enable and download spyware or remote access Trojans. Here is another example where the message was sent through Messenger, and the user is not a friend of the recipient. There are two things to note here. One is the sense of urgency, and two, the sender is asking for money. The next type is SMS and text, which works the same way as email phishing. It provides the victim with a fake offer or warning as an incentive to take action, such as to click a URL. For example, in this slide, the message on the left is disguised as an opportunity, and the example on the right is about an urgent action required. These messages were sent from unknown numbers, both required to click a link, and the URL does not use the domain URL of the company which supposedly sent the message. Now that we know what these scams are, how do we now make sure that we don't fall prey to these types of activities? Let's look at some tips to help us. First, the best way to spot phishing is to be aware of the different phishing techniques and the threats of phishing. Knowing the threat is one step closer to preventing the risk associated with the threat. You can also use multi-factor authentication to increase the security of accounts. Many sites and applications have the options to enable a one-time password or use an authentication app to make the account more secure. Next, take a careful look at the URLs and make sure that it is completely spelled out. Also, check the sender address and make sure that it's legitimate. If unsure, you can always check with the company and verify the email address. Here are some additional tips. Avoid giving out your personal data. Don't download from sites that you don't trust. Don't click on verified links. And don't open untrusted email attachments. When in doubt, just remember, if something looks too good to be true, then it probably is.
A denial of service or DOS attack is a cyber attack meant to shut down a machine or network, making it inaccessible to its intended users. DOS attacks can accomplish this by flooding the target with traffic or sending it information that triggers a crash. In both instances, the DOS attack deprives legitimate users such as employees or members of the service or resource they expected. Signs of a DOS attack include unavailability of the organization's website, workstations unable to access any website, system slowdown, and high volume of spam email. In the past, it was very easy to target servers due to known vulnerabilities in the TCP transport layer and physical limitation of the infrastructure. Even just by typing a letter A in the search tool of the website could make it crash. But nowadays, these vulnerabilities have been fixed by system developers. But as security gets stronger, the attackers get more creative and launch attacks through multiple devices. This is called the Distributed Denial of Service, or DDoS, which is executed through an army of bots or coordinated attacks. Governments and major companies have been the target of DDoS attacks. In some cases, it is used in conjunction with other types of attacks to distract the main intention of the attackers. Because a DDoS attack can be easily engineered from nearly any location, finding those responsible can be extremely difficult. Sometimes attackers do it just for fun. Others do it as a form of dissent, just like the hacktivists who call themselves anonymous.
What is a botnet? The word botnet is a portmanteau or combination of the words robot and network. Botnets are the workhorses of the internet. They're connected computers performing a number of repetitive tasks to keep websites going. These types of botnets are entirely legal and even beneficial to maintaining a smooth user experience on the internet. But not all botnets are the same. The bad botnets are those infamously known for being a collection of compromised computers running software usually installed via worms, Trojan horses, or backdoors under a common command and control infrastructure. The one behind this is called the bot herder. They lead a collective of hijacked devices with remote commands. Once they've compiled the bots, the herders use command programming to drive their next actions. The zombie computers, or infected computers, or bots, refer to the malware-infected user device that has been taken over for use in the botnet. These devices operate mindlessly under command designed by the bot herder. Assemblies of botnets are usually used in infiltration of multi-layer schemes and can be used to perform other attacks mentioned, such as DDoS, or Distributed Denial of Service attacks, data theft, crashing servers, and malware distribution. Based from a report of Nokia, IoT botnets now represent 78% of malicious software detections, and with more IoT devices worldwide being used, reaching 50 billion this year, we really ought to do something about this. The World Economic Forum suggests a policy model for addressing the botnet threat through prevention, research, and eventual disruption.
The impact of data breach on organizations could be damaging depending on the nature and extent of the data that was infringed. In an article released by Cybint, a global education company which focuses on cybersecurity, there are 4 impacts of data breach to organizations. The company identified financial loss, reputational damage, operational disruption, and legal ramifications. Financial loss can't definitely be forecasted, but financial implications of the data breach are most certain than not since firms need to grapple with the costs incurred from containing the breach, compensating affected customers, and heightened security costs. It is also good to note that data breach affects how an organization is being seen. In an ever-connected world, thanks to social media and the internet, news like data breaches will send a bad reputational image of how a firm manages and secures its data. This could trickle down to how a decrease in market value for publicly listed organizations or a reduction in the number of clients depending on the nature of an organization's operation. In terms of operations, a data breach will also impact and hamper operations of relevant function teams or worse, the entire firm depending again on the extent of the damage. Lastly, a firm can be subjected to legal battles since a data breach could indicate negligence on their end for failing to establish safeguards needed to prevent it from happening. All to say that organizations must always be on the lookout and ensure that their bases are all covered from potential attacks that could lead to data breach.